What is up everyone, it's Saber here and welcome to another Naruto What If you end up liking the video, please consider subscribing. It's free and you can take it back at any time and it really helps me out, and this is my main channel, so if you're interested in what if Naruto had the DNA of every member of the Akatsuki, or what if Naruto was neglected and joined the Straw Hat Pirates, go check out my main channel. And with all of the YouTube formalities out of the way, let's get into it. Orochimaru of the Densetsu no Sannin pays a visit to your village. Oh yeah, he puts a weird hickey seal on your teammate, which also drove him a little crazy. Also tried to do the same to you. Never mind the fact we found out your Minato Namake's son, possibly also being the Red Death Kushina Uzumaki's son. This would make you an actual member of the Uzumaki clan. These key factors, which would require speaking to your Kage immediately to verify these potential facts, something that any other people would want to do as fast as possible, and you decide to save some random ass girl not even from your village. Kohei's snarkiness was almost palpable as he spoke nonchalantly. Karui also put her 2 cents. Never mind, Hebe team might still be lurking around along with the massive carnivorous animals that want to kill and eat us too. I'm just throwing it out there, hun. She was going to be eaten by a massive bear. Did you want me to watch you assholes? Well, not watch per se, but we have more pressing priorities, so yeah, should have just let her die. Omoi spoke back calmly with Kumo's strong military doctrine repeating in his mind, you guys are just heartless bastards, aren't you? We're shinobi. It's called being pragmatic. Sakura and Haku both sigh as their unique motley crew journeys for the center tower within the forest of death. In the back of the Rosette's mind, becoming a Chunin was shelved at the moment given the chaotic events of the past few days. The Chunin exams were a stressing matter in and of itself, but add the factors of these crazy days, it was like her entire world had been turned around its head between the competing foreign teams, the constant life or death situation of freaking Sannin of all people attacking them. How they even managed to survive was a miracle. Orochimaru must have been feeling merciful, though she doubted it considering the stories she heard about him. Sakura casted one worried gaze at Sasuke, namely at his neck, or perhaps it was whatever Orochimaru had done to him that made decide to spare them was her teammate Orochimaru's new experiment. She shuddered at the thought. Another big point of these trials had been the revelations. Naruto's status as a Jinchuriki, his parentage. She couldn't even begin to guess the racing distraught thoughts that had to swarming his mind at this very moment. Whether or not Naruto is an actual Uzumaki, he still has us. I just hope Hokage-sama can give him some much needed answers. Hey, I see something. The rosette was taken out of her thoughts as Yujito spoke up. Everyone took a large collective sigh upon seeing the sole man-made structure in this hellhole of a training zone near one of the larger rivers in the zone. The tower itself was a massive pagoda painted red with tan roofing for each floor. About damn time, Karui muttered as they all land on solid ground at the tower's base, and we have a few days to ourselves and catch our breath, which was true, having only spent 2 days in the dangerous forest. It gave them all 3 days of free time. Naruto made his way over to Haku and Yujito. Thank you again. Haku gave a light polite bow. It was our pleasure. Kojuro gave them a nervous nod while Kohei just gave them a thumbs up. Hey, not a problem. Uzumaki. Yujito gave him a cat-like smirk. We probably gonna end up having to fight each other one day. She raised her hand for him to grasp. It ain't any reason for you to be bitter about it. Surprised at her attitude, an invitation, Naruto quickly replied with a grin of his own and grasped her hand in firm hold. I really hope that if we fight it's not because our villages are acting stupid. I want to see what you're made of in the arena. Hey, you're gonna regret that. The handshake tightened ever so slightly. I'd wipe the floor with you. Blue eyes sharp in his tone gained a competitive oh yeah. Their hands began to tremble as the two put more strength into their grasp. Yeah, Yujito returned the same edge in her voice. Oh yeah. By now their arms were shaking visibly with how much strength they were putting into their handshake. One could imagine the sparks flying in between their locked gaze. Matatabi let out a long tired sigh. Kids these days 10 only sweat drop at the scene. Still saner than what I normally deal with. Niji only rolled his eyes while Sasuke grunts. If you're done flirting, dope, can we finish this part of the exam so I can get looked at? Oh shut up. Both blonde roar back at the Uchiha, blushing, saying their farewells. Each team went through a different pair of large double doors into a spacious room with words carved on one wall. Kohei gave only a dry look to the words while Kojuro cleaned his glasses beside him. Really some dumb riddle a 5-year-old could solve. Haku stretched her arms. Would you rather face Orochimaru again? Her teammate turned several shades white, giving the Hayatan user her answer. Putting his glasses back on, the shy swordsman looked to Haku. Do we tell Mizuki-sama about Naruto-san? No, the brunette responded flatly. I won't put Naruto-kun's life in any more danger than it is being a ninja. He does not need a bullseye on his back. Are you nuts? Kohei spoke up incredulously. I get you like the guy, but Mizuki-sama has to know who Naruto's father is along with his Jinchuriki status. You don't let that kind of information on the back burner. That's ground for treason. Haku, then mine are the consequences. Her tone left no room for argument. Solving the riddle was simple enough. The scrolls held a summoning array when overlapped. They needed inform any superior about Sasuke's mark. What Orochimaru had to him urgently. Hope it's Kakashi-sensei, he'll know what to do. Naruto said with certainty. They'll inform the Hokage regardless. It's he who needs to know as fast as possible. Sakura replied. It involved his student. After all, if anyone had any idea what was going on, then it'd be their leader. Sasuke grunted, placing a hand over his mark in mild distress. He wanted this cursed thing out of him. Let's not waste time. Sharing a nod with his teammates, Naruto stepped forward with the scrolls and positioned them so the arrays would fit. A soft application of chakra signaled the other end, activated them. A plume of smoke burst from them, and to their surprise it was their academy teacher Iruka Umino who appeared forth. He looked at them with that kind smile he often have them when they were younger. I'm so happy to see you three made it forth. I can see it wasn't easy for you, but Sensei. Sakura cut him off and took a step forward with urgency in her voice. Orochimaru attacked us in the forest. His breath caught in his throat and the color quickly left his face. What he gave Sasuke some sort of weird seal, Naruto added with distress, remembering how their teammate had lashed out at them. Sasuke showed the academy teacher the evidence, tugging at his collar to better display the seal on his neck. A shallow gasp escaped Iruka's lips. They saw the sheer worry and horror written on his face as clear as day. The Chunin managed to regain his bearings and quickly instructed them with the authority a teacher possessed. Stay here, I'll be right back. His hands formed a seal and he disappeared with the same burst of smoke he had materialized with. It wasn't long before Iruka reappeared with Hiruzen in tow, his expression grave. Show me the Hokage ordered, not beating around the bush. Upon showing the mark Orochimaru placed on his shoulder, the Sandaime spoke sternly. We need to seal this off immediately. Gigi. Hiruzen glanced over to Naruto. After you help Sasuke, I need to talk to you. The Hokage nodded before placing his hand on Sasuke's other shoulder and vanishing via Shunshin. Iruka only sighed, rubbing his brow. Why did he come back now? Orochimaru is after Sasuke and Naruto. Sakura quietly spoke up, making the Scar Chunin sharply look at her and then to Naruto. I'm okay, he didn't get me. Relief washed over Iruka before noticing how quiet his former student was. What's wrong? Cerulean eyes stared up at him with a myriad of mixed emotions. I should he tell him Iruka-sensei was to be trusted. After all, he could always count on him when he was feeling down, but could he? It was all still very overwhelming. Part of him didn't even believe it, despite evidence to the contrary that he was the Yondaime's son. Letting out a long breath, he finally said, it's complicated. I found out some things in the forest. His gaze became downcast, falling to the floor. Currently processing it. Iruka knelt down, gently placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Are you feeling okay? He asked with genuine concern. Think I will be well when you feel ready to talk. You know where to find me. He smiled at the boy. And then I'll treat you to a chiraka. Does that sound good? Naruto slowly smiled. You got it. With his shirt off, Sasuke sat quietly as the Hokage, joined now by Kakashi, examined Orochimaru's seal. Naruto looked this over for you? The silver-haired Jounin asked. Yes, said I couldn't use jutsu or mold chakra without risking further exposure to the seal, but he couldn't seal it himself. His skills aren't advanced enough for something like this, Hiruzen said critically, looking at every detail of the seal. Before that, you say you heard a voice? Yes, told me to gain more power and kill anyone in my way. The Uchiha stared at the ground. I attacked Naruto because of that damn thing. Can you get rid of it? Hokage-sama. The Wizenkage made a guttural sound as he stroked his beard. Not fully. I'm afraid those words sent any hope Sasuke have crashing down, but I can suppress its effects via sealing, limit its influence, and allow you to use jutsu and mold chakra again without risk of the cursed seal's chakra infecting. Is it really the option, limiting its influence and returning to him? His abilities sounded great, but he didn't feel comfortable with that seal being stuck on his neck. Kakashi jauntily supplied. We could gouge out the flesh around the seal, removing all infected chakra points. Sealing it is then, Sasuke said in defeated acceptance. The Hokage patted his shoulder. Try to remain calm, my boy, this will hurt. He let out a humorless laugh. I'm used to pain by now, if that makes you feel better. Sasuke felt the Hokage's hand seal chakra humming through his fingers and into him. The young Uchiha felt an unpleasant pressure built up, but it was anything. Oh gods, the pain! He wailed loudly as he felt the searing hot burning of flames and electricity mixed into one, coursing from his neck and over his body, almost like someone was pressing a soldering iron into his neck while spilling boiling water on him. The Hokage's face was one of grizzled determination as he finished the final touches to the counter seal. The matrix was in place, sealing off the infection area of the cursed mark seal. An array of kanji appeared around the three tomo, the letters quickly shining before turning invisible. The curse mark remained, but now it was inert. The pain stopped, but the sensations lingered for a moment. Sasuke gasped as he placed a trembling hand over his neck. It is done. The Hokage informed him that should keep the cursed mark at bay. Relax, Sasuke, breath, as sensei advised him slowly. The young Uchiha slowly reined in his breathing, the rising and falling of his chest becoming less irregular by the moment as he regained his bearings, the pain slowly vanishing after a few more slow intakes of air. Sasuke could sigh in relief. Thank you, my lord, he said in respectful gratitude to the elder Kage. Sasuke watched in confusion, as the Hokage's face became a touch melancholic. You own me? Nothing, my boy. Even his tone was heavy. It was odd, but Sasuke didn't give it much thought as he put on his shirt again. Kakashi placed a hand on his shoulder. You should go with Sakura and Naruto, get some rest before the debriefing for the next part of the exam starts. Sasuke nodded. The thought of his teammates making him remember the events that had transpired in the forest. He struggled for a moment to find the right words, before looking at the village leader in the face. Naruto knows the truth about his father, Hokage-sama. His sensei let out a soft gasp of shock, his visible eye widening. Hiruzen, despite the slight show of emotion he had displayed early, managed to remain stoic in the face of this news. Indeed, was the only thing he said. Sasuke nodded in reply. Yes, it is none of my business, but I believe you must talk with him. Slowly the Hokage exhaled. Yes, I believe it has been a long time coming. Both Sakura and Naruto were ecstatic to find a room designated for their team with 3 beds and a bathroom. The blonde planted himself face first into one of the mattresses, eliciting a giggle from his female teammate. The Rosette sat down beside him. Interesting few days, huh? Naruto snorted before shifting to lie on his back. His cerulean stares up at the ceiling. Are you really okay about me being Jinchuriki? And all his questions was met with a flick to the forehead. The Rosette gave the blonde a dry gaze. Baka Sakura's voice was quiet as she looked him in the eyes. I meant every word. It doesn't matter if you're the QB Jinchuriki, you're my friend and teammate, maybe future Godame Hokage, if you stop being so wishy-washy, Sakura said as she cheekily grinned. The blonde glared till both began laughing. Their laughter was cut short by the sound of the door opening, revealing their teammate standing on the door frame, the Hokage standing behind him with a carefully guarded expression on his face. Naruto and Sakura bolted to their feet, as ran straight to the Uchiha, stopping to an almost screeching halt. So are you okay? Naruto rapidly asked, getting too close to Sasuke's personal space for his liking. You won't go all murdery again? Sasuke scowled. Only if you don't back away. Sakura sighed, partly in relief and partly frustrated at their antics. He's fine. As the Uchiha moved past his team to sit one of the beds, Naruto turned back to Hiruzen. Before we talk, just tell me please, Gigi, am I actually member of the Uzumaki clan? Both Sakura and Sasuke watched the stony expression of the Hokage, who was silent for a minute before sighing. Yes, you are the son of Kushina Uzumaki. The blonde narrowed his eyes as both his teammates looked wide-eyed. I will speak to you two later on. Keeping the matter silent for now, I must speak privately to Naruto. Before either could respond, the Hokage and Naruto had vanished. Time skip. Naruto and Hiruzen appearing in Sarutobi's personal office in the tower. The blonde saw it looked like his Gigi's office in the Hokage tower, but honestly he couldn't be bothered with such details at the moment. Going to his desk, Hiruzen activated the barrier and silence seals in the room. Moving over to the one couch of the room, the Kage sat and looked over to his surrogate grandson. Go ahead, Naruto-kun, I have a clan, and you never told me why. The blonde spoke in a mixture of pain and rage. For your protection during the third Shinobi War, your mother carved her legend into IWA, and Kumo Kushina was extremely respected and feared with her prowess as a brilliant Kenjutsu, Taijutsu and Fuinjutsu master. She also had a rare form of chakra where she could create actual solid chains from her energy, something unique to the Uzumaki. You didn't answer my question. Inwardly he was in awe by his mother's skills. During the second war, your clan was nearly destroyed by a joint attack from IWA and Kumo. They deeply feared you clan's power, and so when our forces were at our weakest they attacked. Kushina was blessedly in Konoha weeks before the attack. I feared if people knew you were of direct line of the Uzumaki and the Uzukages, they would use you for their own ends. You would have been a target. I'm a target anyway, Naruto muttered. He was the Jinchuriki of the QB, something that wasn't a secret anymore just because of the damn fox. Hey, I'm not a fan of this either. Naruto ignored his tenant's words that were filled with annoyance. Had everything gone according to plan, you never would have been the Sandame. Sighed, rubbing his forehead. You mother, she was the previous Jinchuriki. Blue eyes snapped open in shock. What his response was flat, barely even in a questioning tone. That is why she came to Konoha. Hiruzen explained she was the most ideal candidate. But I don't get it. Naruto shook his head, a million thoughts running through his mind. Then how did the QB get loose? If female Jinchuriki's pregnancy is not ordinary, the child feeds upon the chakra from the seal, which adds one more month and causes it to weaken immensely upon childbirth. If he got chakra from the seal from the fox, then that explained why he got those whisker marks. But didn't you have measures in place? The Hokage's gaze was as dry as sand. Do you think we're stupid, my boy? Of course we did. She was taken to give birth on a special location surrounded by multiple layered seals, dozens of ANBU, my own wife taking care of the delivery. The Yoname himself keeping the seal stable. He was my dad, wasn't he? At this point Hiruzen didn't question how Naruto came to know of it. Yes. Naruto's eyes shut tightly, willing himself to not let the tears spill. Why did he choose me? He should have known how hard all of this would have been, shouldn't he? What kind of father submitted his son to that kind of fate? He looked up when he felt a hand upon his shoulder and saw Hiruzen looking at him with that comforting gaze he always gave him, because there was no choice, and a father trusts his son with such responsibility. What happened? Hiruzen made a throaty sound. A question I haven't stopped asking myself after all these years. The best we can tell is that someone interfered. Beyond that, we have no evidence to make a reasonable theory. He left it at that. His father, Minato Namikaze, was his father, but he was also shinobi. He was also the Hokage. His duty was more than to just him, it was to the entire village. Could he himself have done the same had he been on his father's shoes? He didn't know the answer, wasn't sure he wanted to know. Even so, for now he let the matter drop. He didn't know how to deal with it right now. Hiruzen sighed. How did you find out? It's part of it is hard to explain, he sniffled, rubbing his nose against his arm. Back in the forest we figured it out just by piecing things together. It also helps that I'm basically a carbon copy of my dad. It felt odd saying that. Funny how a lot of people can't see that. He bitterly said. Oh, don't be surprised, my boy. People can't see what they don't want to see, even when it's right in front of their face. The Hokage spoke wisely. You yourself never noticed either, because in no way you could compare yourself with the Yondaime. Am I wrong? No, he was not, Naruto had to admit. But that must not be the hard part. You meant, Hiruzen noted. What else tipped you off? I had a dream where I saw them. I don't know how or why, but I think it was before they died. The Sandaime's analytical mind immediately began processing that. Strange were those memories from you? Please, Naruto, you must have been barely an hour old. Babes don't even have pattern recognition at that point, much less the capacity to form memories that just pop out as dreams. It's absurd. It did sound pretty dumb when he said it like that. He stroked his beard and thought, to have such developed memories, they're clearly not yours. The closest answer I can come up with is that it must be residual chakra implanted to you by your parents when they formed the seal, their own memories of that even imprinted into it. Can that even work? He didn't know the mechanics behind such chakra, that it could share memories. That was something new for him. Chakra works in a lot of ways, Naruto. From my studies with the Amanaka, it is not outside the realm of possibility. His eyes fell to the floor. It felt like they loved me. Hiruzen's arm wrapped around his shoulder. They did, Naruto. Gods no, they did. It was actually very comforting to know that his parents loved him to the point they gave up their lives for him. He had received love the moment he was born. He wasn't some child nobody had abandoned to fend for his own. He was Naruto, son of Kushina and Minato, two parents who loved their child more than anything else in the world. He could cling to that feeling, that happiness. I wish I had something to remember them by. You have an inheritance to claim, Naruto, the Hokage said gently. I was waiting for the day you'd be ready for it, and I think that day has come. In fact, he searched through his robes and pulled out a miniaturized scroll, a single hand seal, and it returned to normal. Now that Naruto could look at it better, he saw it was green and had a golden lining. I've been carrying this around for years. Among the items recovered from the scene of the event years ago, we found this scroll with the only instructions being open it. They had been written hastily, like the one who did it was under great stress. He suspected it was Kushina. Despite my best efforts, I just couldn't open the damn thing. Naruto tilted his head as he looked at it. And why couldn't you? It has a bloodlock matrix. Only someone of the same blood as the one who used it can open it. There is a 50-50 chance it is Minato's or Kushina's blood that is required in Uzumaki or in Namikaze. He pieced things together. You need me to unlock it? Well, the Sandaime rubbed his neck. That's the thing, you're both Namikaze and Uzumaki. There's the chance the seal won't recognize your mixed blood and collapse, destroying the contents inside. Oh, Naruto's eyes widened. Yeah, that was a big risk, and yet I want to try. Hiruzen looked at him with apprehension. Are you completely sure? If there is something my parents left me, then yes, I think it's worth the risk. The Hokage soon smiled. In that grandfatherly way of his, he leaned close and whispered, with an undeniable touch of mirth to his voice, let's open it, shall we? Naruto couldn't keep the smile from splitting his smile, and eager stood up alongside the Sandaime, who placed the scroll on the floor. How do we do this? He was nearly bouncing on his feet. He was just too excited. Smear some of your blood on the seal. That should open it. A quick bite on his thumb cut the skin and allowed blood to flow freely. He knelt down and carefully placed his hand upon the scroll, pouring chakra into it as he cried out release, and then nothing happened. Hiruzen huffed. That was anticlimactic. Naruto's shoulders sagged. Apparently it didn't work. Bummer. Then the scroll exploded with a huge release of chakra. Furniture was turned over, books fell from their shelves, and the two occupants of the room were thrown back to the floor due to the violent shock wave. Bright light illuminated the room. Whoa, Naruto cried out. What's this? The light was too intense for him to see. I don't know, Hiruzen shouted amidst the Sudden chaos. Stay close my boy. He reached out to Naruto with the intent to shield him from whatever was happening. The chakra in the air was so dense and intense any sensor within the vicinity must have felt it. No doubt the ANBU were already on their way. The chakra began to coalesce into human shape, the brightness of the room dimming as though the figure was drawing in all the light, bones, organs, muscle, skin, nails, hair, and the chakra was becoming physical, giving form and life to something or rather someone. Then as abruptly as it started it was over. Naruto and Hiruzen, still shielding their eyes, heard a dry thud as if a heavy object had suddenly hit the floor. Slowly they turned to see the result of such chaotic maelstrom of energy and felt their souls leave their bodies at the sight before them. Sprawled on the ground was a woman bare of any clothing but the fact that had her front to the floor and her long red locks were covering most of her figure hid any indecency. Her back rose and fell in quick succession. Ragged breaths escaped her mouth as though she had trouble breathing. Shakily raising her head, violet eyes stared at the first person she could see. A trembling hand tried to reach for him. Naruto. The hand fell to the ground as the woman passed out. Naruto and Hiruzen were white, the color having drained from their faces. They had seen this woman before, though the circumstances were different. Hiruzen knew her for many years. Naruto had only seen her in dreams. Mom. Hiruzen's eyes quivered. This wasn't possible. The ANBU burst into the office, no doubt drawn in by the burst of chakra. Hokage-sama. Nico was the first to speak, having already drawn her blade. Are you alright? What's the situa? The moment she saw the third figure in the room her blade fell from her hands. Is that no, it can't be the ANBU, muttered among themselves. Hiruzen fought hard to regain his composure, analyze, prioritize, and react. Those were the words Tobirama-sensei had drilled into his head. Kushina. The woman before them was Kushina Uzumaki, alive. Kushina was here in front of him, alive. He quickly got to his feet. Take her to the medical bay with utmost secrecy, he ordered. We don't know what we're dealing with here. The ANBU, being the elites they were quick to break out of their stupor and carry out his command. Nico was the first to move, placing her cloak around the red-headed woman, while her comrades aided in moving her when she was taken out of the room. Hiruzen knelt before the broken pieces of the scroll. He took one look at the fragments of the array and, gobsmacked by the sheer complexity of them, he recognized this work anywhere. There was no doubt in Hiruzen's mind what this scroll was and who had made it. Sharply turning to the young genin, he saw the poor boy was stunned beyond belief, frozen in place. He couldn't even move. The Hokage gently grabbed his hands. Blue eyes slowly looked at him. Come with me, Naruto. I don't know what's going on, but I know you need to be present for it. Time skip. Forest of Death Tower Medical Facility's secure location. An entire wing of the medical bay had been sealed off. ANBU stood guard, keeping a tight perimeter as the elite medics had been brought in to perform a full inspection upon the woman. Hiruzen hoped dearly that it was truly Kushina. He hoped that somehow she had survived that tragic night, but the ninja in him knew better than to have such expectations. But the scroll in his hands, or rather the fragments of it, he had sent in order to postpone the next stage of the exam under the excuse that they were currently conducting all their efforts into searching for Orochimaru. The snake Sannin had caused plenty of casualties among the various shinobi from different villages and struck terror into the genin who were fortunate enough to have seen him and lived to tell about it. Nobody would raise any question with a threat such as him running about. It wasn't an outright lie. He had plenty of ANBU searching the forest and the village for him, so for now the prelims would be momentarily delayed. It served them that they were just a couple of days from now. With some fortune they wouldn't prolong too much. A raccoon-masked ANBU appeared next to him as though materializing from thin air. We've opened her grave as you ordered, my lord, and there was nothing there, but it was filled with dried blood. Hiruzen's eyes widened in realization. A blood clone. We buried a blood clone. Such type of clone was useful to fake a corpse, but only for a short time until they run out of chakra. It could also be solid enough to be wounded and not dispel like other clones, though it shared the weaknesses of a human body. It was the clone that had helped shield Naruto from the Kyuubi's claw. He was already formulating a theory of what had happened that night, but they need to wait for Kushina to wake up first. Casting one eye at Naruto, he saw the young man was facing a myriad of emotions. The old Hokage couldn't blame him. This was just too much for the boy. He'd be in the same situation if his own late daughter or his wife suddenly returned out of nowhere, so all he could do now was keep the boy company as they both waited outside the room. Kushina was being tended by the medics. The young Jinchuriki fought hard to keep his breathing. Even his mother was here. His mother was alive. He could hardly believe it. Part of him thought it was just a dream, but it felt too real. There was no way this was just a fantasy brought by his imagination. He should feel happy, and he did really, but the chaotic nature of this situation and the stress it brought made it difficult to focus on positive thoughts, so instead he'd wait for his mother to see him. If he could just talk to her, he'd know everything would be alright. A burst of smoke appeared right next to him, and Naruto saw Kakashi looking more alarmed than he had ever seen him. There was a look in his eye the young genin had never seen before, desperation mixed in With hesitant hope Hokage-sama Naruto he spoke with a strained voice. Is it true? No doubt Gigi had sent for him. The Hokage sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. We're trying to confirm it, but all evidence so far seems to point it is true. The person inside that room is indeed Kushina. Kakashi's breath was caught in his throat. Oh my gods! Naruto looked at his sensei wanting to ask him. A sudden crashing sound alerted everyone. It came from the room. His mother was in a medic burst out of the door, a panic expression clear on his face as they caught glimpses of struggle behind him. Hokage-sama, the patient is awake but she's attacking everyone. Hiruzen and Kakashi immediately tensed for action, their experience making them rationalize what was happening. Kushina had just woken up after a traumatic experience giving birth to Naruto. The QB extracted from her. She was confused and running on adrenaline, which made her lash out against everything she perceived as a threat, that is to say everyone in her vicinity. The Hokage and Jonin sprinted quickly towards the room. Naruto followed soon after but wasn't fast enough to arrive. When they did, the two older shinobi saw Kushina dressed in a medical gown being restrained by several ANBU. Well, the ANBU were trying to restrain her. Rather, someone of Kushina's strength running high on adrenaline was as easy to restrain as a bear, a mother bear looking for her cub. Most likely Kushina. Dano, you need to calm down. One ANBU, one that spoke with a certain familiarity with her, tried to calm her. He stood behind her. His arms were under her armpits as they sneaked their way behind her head in a hold. Nico was holding her left arm. Sensei, it's us, you're in Konoha. But Kushina would not listen. Her wild eyes caught sight of a medic approaching her with a needle. An upward kick snatched the object from his hands, and a strong tug on her part released her arm from an ANBU's hold. The grabbed the needle from midair and stabbed at the ANBU behind her right on the thigh, injecting into him whatever sedative they were going to give her. The effect was swift. He lost his strength and stumbled back, releasing the Uzumaki. Kushina let go of the needle and lashed out with her arm at the ANBU on her right. The blow was strong enough to send him stumbling to the floor. She then quickly took hold of Nico's arms, kicking her feet and making her lose her balance. She was lifted from the ground as Kushina threw her over her shoulder. In a throw, her body collided painfully against the floor. Naruto was honestly frightened at the ferocity displayed by his mother. He started to understand what Shikamaru was always complaining so much about. Kakashi was in the middle of pulling up his headband to reveal his Sharingan, but in a burst of movement that even he had trouble keeping up with, the Sandame had cleared the distance between them and Kushina. He quickly grabbed her arm and twisted it, forcing her to her knees. She cried out violently in defiance even as he pressed his palm against her head. Calm down. The words felt unnatural. A tinge of chakra filled the air around him. It was soon clear to Naruto and Kakashi what he did, a genjutsu, one that was apparently calming the nerves of the red-headed woman. Her ragged breathing began stabilizing. Her pupils dilated and constricted before settling into a regular size. Kushina's rage-filled expression slowly morphed into a stunned one. Her thoughts slowed down, allowing her to better perceive her surroundings and identify who these people were. Old man, she whispered. It's all right, Hiruzen softly replied, slowly letting go of her arm. You're safe. She breathed deeply, calming herself as she remained knelt on the ground. Safe? On where's my baby? Hiruzen did not reply. He merely turned his gaze towards Naruto, who stood by the door. Kushina followed it and choked on a breath as he saw the young boy. Naruto gulped, feeling an overwhelming nervousness wrecking inside him. Naruto, the older Uzumaki muttered, no, you can't be him. He's just a baby. The boy remained frozen in the spot. It took a soft push by Kakashi to motivate him into moving. He slowly approached his mother until they were face to face. It's you, it really is you. Her eyes quivered. How long has it been? Hiruzen answered her. You've been gone for 12 years. A sob escaped her lips. 12 years. Tears fell down her cheeks. Oh Minato, I'm sorry. She looked at her son with great regret. I'm so sorry. Naruto wasn't sure he understood what she apologizing for, but he didn't care. The moment his mother placed her arms around him, nothing mattered anymore. He merely hugged her back, eyes leaking tears as they took comfort in each other, finally reunited. After so long feeling his mother's embrace, it was the most wonderful feeling he had ever experienced. He didn't know how much time had passed when they embraced, but eventually they both let go and Kushina was guided towards the bed where she now rested. They had a lot of questions after all, and now that she was in her right mind she could perhaps provide the answers, but first they needed to ease her into her current situation. Oh my gods, Kushina groaned out into her hands. 12 years. Has it really been 12 years? Scratch that, she sighed as she looked at the occupants in her room. Yugao, Kakashi, Hiruzen, and most of all her son. Looking at you guys, it's obvious time passed. I never thought I'd be in that scroll for so long. Are you okay? Naruto asked with concern. Kushina smiled warmly at him, placing a hand atop his head. I'll be fine, I just need a moment to take it all in. Oh geez, it feels like I time traveled. Sensei, it now just dawned on Naruto that Nico, now bereft of her mask, was calling his own mother Sensei, but that wasn't important right now. How did you survive? Kushina rubbed her neck in a manner Naruto himself often did. I took a big gamble. I'd say, Hiruzen replied. He pulled out the broken scrolls pieces from his robes. You used this, didn't you? The Uzumaki hissed as she saw the remains. Yikes, it really was a one-time use thing. What's that? Naruto curiously asked as he looked at the scroll fragments. I share his confusion. Kakashi added, I've never seen a scroll like this in my life. It was not Kushina that answered them, but Hiruzen. Proving why he was called the professor. The Tenrai Suimin divine sleep, Yugao repeated in confusion as her eyes narrowed. One of the biggest works done by a member of my clan, Kushina clarified. Tsukiko Uzumaki, who Naruto frowned. Kushina snorted. Only the biggest badass woman that's ever lived. Master of seals, so great they actually called her the goddess of Fuinjutsu. This was gonna be one of her biggest works, a scroll that could save someone from the brink of death. Amazing. Kakashi was sincerely awed. How does it work? The sheer complexity of it. Supposedly it stores the user inside and reforms the body to the point of optimal health, erasing diseases and healing wounds no matter how grave. Kushina paused. At least that's what Tsukiko Bachan intended. She said the thing was incomplete and she never had the chance to test it on a person, not to mention the chakra requirement for thing is ungodly. She spent years gathering chakra to power it, and it's still incomplete. She deemed it a failure and gave it to me with the explicit instructions of only using it when I have no other choice. I must agree with Tsukiko Dano, the Hokage said as he inspected one of the broken pieces. No timer release mechanism, nothing to prompt its release once the user is healed. The already highly complex array doesn't leave room to implement something anything like that. You could have been trapped inside of it for eternity. He sighed. You were damn lucky, girl. Your vague instructions didn't help. Oh, I'm so sorry. The sarcasm in her voice was palatable. I would have been clearer about it, but you know, I just had pushed another human out of me and had a fucking biju ripped out from my very being. You'll forgive me if I wasn't in my right mind at the time. The forced sweat dropped. Well, they couldn't deny the circumstances weren't favorable for one to act rationally, and she's back. Naruto blinked as the fox drawled inside his mind. At least I'm not riddled with spikes inside of her again, and I don't have to deal with her anymore, so that's a positive. As far as positive my current situation can be. Hey, you tried to kill me. You don't really have the moral high ground here. The young genin irritably shot back out loud, much to the confusion of the others. Kushina understood what was going on, and it brought a sense of shame and regret. She pushed it down for the moment. Talking to the fox, Naruto nodded. Yeah, he's an ass. Hey fox, she glared as though she was actually glaring at the biju. Still alive, bitch, I win. Hiruzen sighed while Kakashi awkwardly chuckled. It was almost like Kushina never left. Truly the fates were kind sometimes. Kushina the Hokage called for her attention. We don't know all the effects of the divine sleep seal, or even if your body has been properly reformed, so I advise. He stressed the word clearly, meaning that by advice he meant order, that you remain in bed until the doctors give the all clear. Kushina groaned loudly as she fell back onto the bed. Oh, give me a break. I already went through so much shit today. Well, not today, but you know what I mean. Ugh, I'm fine. Hiruzen gave her the most deadpanning look possible. The doctors say your heart is now on the right. Oh, she placed her hand on her chest to verify, and yet there it was on the right. I'll need to ask you some questions. His gaze softened considerably. I know this is too soon, but we need to understand what happened that night. Her hand tightened into a fist, shaking violently at the memory of an orange mask. She let out a shuddering breath. Yeah, I'll tell you everything. Naruto worried immensely for his mother. Her words were just filled with so much anger and sadness. He placed a hand on the bed, not really sure of what to do at the moment. Part of him felt nervous about making physical contact with her again, afraid he'd mess it up just because he was too dumb to understand a social cue or something. Kushina's hand lowered and grasped her son's so tightly. Hiruzen, Yugao and Kakashi silently excused themselves, giving them their space. You were so small, she said softly, and now my baby has grown up and I missed it. I choose to use that scroll because I couldn't bear the thought of you being all alone. I cheated death and let Minato die, all because I was selfish and rash and wasn't thinking straight. And she choked on a breath. And I still left you because I didn't do things right, burdened you with being a Jinchuriki mom. He didn't get how anything she could do was selfish. You guys saved me. I'm here because you love me. That's why I'm here today, happy and healthy. She paused for a moment. You're happy? He smiled at her so brilliantly. You're here. How couldn't I be? The older Uzumaki looked at him with a stunned expression. After her own failures as a mother, she didn't think possible for her son to smile at her like that, to be so thankful for the few things she did for him. Naruto stilled as he suddenly found himself encircled by his mother's arms once more. She wept as she held him. Thank you for being our son. The young boy soon found himself shedding tears as well as arms returning the hug just as strongly. I love you. Time skipped. The beams of the moonlit shined from the heavens above over Konoha. Idly Kushina gazed out her window, taking the sight of the forest of death. Her eyes soon returned to the sleeping form of her son lying on her bed with his head on her lap. She took in every detail of Naruto as she watched his chest rise and fall. It was a bit hard to be. This was her son, hers. and Minato's her hand rested in her son's spiky golden locks. Her heart ached. 12 years she could never get back, but now was not the time for moping. She shook it off, turning her sights to Hiruzen. How was it everyone learned about my son's Jinchuriki status, while mine was so well hidden? I have no answers for you, my dear. I found no leads on how Naruto's status was learned by the masses. Kushina looked over to her former student, the ANBU, looked into everything Commander Fox himself headed the investigation, but we couldn't find any evidence. Yugao lightly huffed. Whoever leaked it made certain they were never found, which means whoever did it is really good in this line of work to have been able to get away with it. Kushina reasoned and let out a sigh. She had been spared of her status as Jinchuriki becoming public knowledge, so she would not have to go through the ordeal of the civilians treating her any differently because of it, and so the rival villages would not target her, barring the episode of Kumo kidnapping her, whom she deduced only had guesses, and leads to her being the Jinchuriki based on her lineage rather than any solid evidence. Her secret had been revealed to only a few officials of the village and people she could trust. With this kind of information, for Naruto to have been exposed like that since birth, she had no idea how it must have been like. Part of her didn't even want to know, but this growing side of her that was becoming alarmingly stronger by the minute, her motherly side, needed to know. How bad was it? She softly asked, never taking her eyes away from her son. The thought felt so strange yet wonderful. Kakashi's gaze avoided her as though ashamed. Yugao closed her eyes somberly while the Wizen Kage sighed. It was the village leader that answered her. He was alone for a long time. It felt like a kunai was lodged in her heart as Kushina bit her lip. I ensured nothing extreme like abuse ever happened, like some Jinchuriki. Save yourself was treated at best as treatment by the village was with a mild neglect, outcast, pariah, and a few the kinder words used for a Jinchuriki in most villages. The Yuzu matriarch shook her head, but Makoto Asahi Inoichi and Sumu no clan politics. Kushina-sama. Kakashi responded back quietly. Involving a Jinchuriki into the household, that made things extremely complicated. The redhead growled before huffing in annoyance. Of course she knew taking in a Jinchuriki was essentially being given an edge over the other clans. This upsets the balance of power between them. As much as she did not want to admit it, her friends' hands were tied, so they couldn't do anything for Naruto. Did they know? At least they knew Naruto was your son. Hiruzen nodded. But knowing only made it more frustrating for them. I can't count how many times Tsum was swearing and shouting in my office. His snort came from Kushina. Hasn't lost her temper. As she glancing to her side, she noticed how quiet Kakashi was being. You okay? I wasn't there for him, he finally said with guilt. Senpai Yugao tried to intervene, but the Hataki continued on. I actually went out of my way to avoid him. His voice was filled with shame and self-loathing. He was all alone, and I could have spent time with him, invite him to eat ramen, teach him from an early age how to be a ninja, how to deal with this unforgiving life. But he didn't. He just watched the boy from a distance. Even when he could clearly see the loneliness in his downcast expression, he had been so afraid of becoming close to Naruto and have him share the same fate all his loved ones did. Even now as he sensei, he still hadn't made things right, as watched the boy grow up with the best aspects of his parents, Minato's sheer dedication and drive, Kushina's overwhelming kindness and cheerfulness. He did not have the guts to tell the boy the truth, to apologize for having failed him. He closed his eye. Forgive me, Kushina-sama, I dishonored Minato-sensei's memory as well as yours. For a moment the room fell into silence, which was only broken by Kushina's sigh. Carrying all that guilt on you, there's something I'm not happy to see. It hasn't changed. She looked at him even as he refused to meet her eyes. When Obito and Rin died, I saw as you nearly lost yourself to despair. I don't even want to imagine the kind of mess you were with me and Minato gone. Hiruzen grunted but held his tongue. The word mess did not even begin to cover it. You actually think I'd accuse you or berate you when you obviously must have been on a terrible place at the time. The Jounin still would not look at her. Kakashi Ataki, look at me. Obeying Kakashi's one eye turned and gazed into Kushina's warm, understanding violet orbs. I will never berate you for a damn thing except holding on to that damn guilt. Kakashi felt lighter, if only just a little, as Kushina motioned for him to get closer. Doing so, he was brought into a hug by the redhead, still a stubborn brat. She whispered. A few stray tears fell from the Jounin's eye as both Yugao and Hiruzen smiled. Get some rest, all of you. We will talk in the morning, the Sandame ordered. Naruto grumbled as the sunlight hit his eyes. Why does that damn sun always come on me in the mornings? Yeah, the blonde was never much of a morning person. Groggy, the blonde sat up as he stretched and then rubbed his eyes, blinking a few times. His vision adjusted, seeing Kakashi-sensei and an ANBU woman sleeping in two chairs. He noticed his surroundings. Why was he in a medical room? Then his brain finally jump-started as he turned, seeing the resting form of his mother. It wasn't a dream. He felt a few tears come from his eyes before rubbing them away. My mom's alive, Kushina soon groaned as the morning sun landed onto Her face, can someone blow up the damn sun database, she muttered as she pulled the blanket over her face. Mom, he tried softly tapping her shoulder. Come on, wake up. The figure under the blanket suddenly grew very still, slowly like a frightened animal. Her eyes peeked above the end of the blanket. Two violet orbs looked as his blue ones. With apprehension she stared at him like that for a moment. That was becoming increasingly awkward. Oh right, I have a 12-year-old son, she said, her voice slightly breathy. Most of her face remained hidden behind the blanket while her eyes bore into him wide and unblinking. You okay? Me? Yeah, just freaking out a little bit. It'll pass. Naruto sweat drops as the door opens, stirring both Kakashi and Yugao as the Hokage walks in smoking his pipe. Kuma is bringing some breakfast for everyone. He sweat drops, seeing only half of Kushina's face peeking out from under her blanket. Soon blinking, Kushina sat up, lowering her blanket. Kuma's still around, huh? He was the poor bastard you sent to Dreamland with the sedatives yesterday, Kakashi dryly spoke up. The redhead winced. Oh, I'll apologize when he gets here. The silver-haired Jounin waved it off before looking over to a stretching Yugao, sweat dropping. You slept with your mask on. The female A&B weakly chuckled. Kushina rolled eyes as Hiruzen sighed. You have permission to remove your mask, Nico. Naruto, I know, won't say anything. The said blonde lightly blushed, seeing the cute round face of Nico with her warm brown eyes looking at him with a smile from her ruby red lips. My name is Yugao Yuzuki, your mother's only student. The purple-haired woman stood walking over to her sensei and sensei's son. Naruto slowly blinked at her in confusion. Okay, couple of questions here. You have a student and not a genin team, as sometimes happens. His mother shrugged. Odd number of graduates jonin putting their name and reputation on the line and taking on a single apprentice or a student is handpicked to be trained for a specific role. There are various reasons as to why they don't get teams the Hokage supplied. For example, Lee was under Guy's mentorship until he was assigned a team. Oh, Guy got a student. Kushina's smile broke into a wide grin. I so want to see what kind of tough kid can put up with that attitude. Kakashi, Naruto, Yugao and Hiruzen paled considerably. Yeah, the ANBU in the room started nervously. That is the point is I was considered a bit more advanced during my evaluations, and so Kushina sensei decided to take me under her wing. Kushina snorts. The little advanced Yu-chan here was my little prodigy. Yugao eeped, being hugged by her teacher who rubbed her cheek against hers. I never saw anyone take to Kenjutsu so well. That wasn't an Uzumaki sensei. The purple-haired woman groaned, blushing while glaring over at a chuckling Kakashi. Keep laughing, senpai. I will get back at you, mama, like the several dozen other times you and the others tried before. The Jounin eyes smiled. Besides, you're used to Kushina-sama's antics as much as I am. It just dawned on Naruto how familiar Kakashi was with his mother. How do you know my mom, Kakashi-sensei? The room became quiet, and still there was no ignoring the question, no brushing it off as he would usually do. At this point it was either the truth or the truth. There was no backing away from it. Your father was my sensei. Either Naruto took the news in stride or the recent events had dulled him greatly, for his face remained impassive and nearly expressionless, if not for the slight twitch of his cheek that Kakashi could see. Was his reply. Kakashi saw the fist coming from a mile away. He could have dodged easily or held his fist back, but he chose to recede, and he deserved it. After all, it didn't hurt that much, slamming into his jaw, only a slight annoyance compared to the things he had endured in his long career. But as long as Naruto had some vindication and quelled his anger, then that was what mattered. The blonde grunted as he pulled his fist back, quietly shaking it. That had hurt more to him than it surely did to Kakashi. Thanks for telling me, he said in sarcasm laced with anger. Naruto, Uzumaki, Kushina yelled before Kakashi rose up his hand. The Jounin rubbed his jaw. No, I deserve that. Naruto asked me months ago in Nami about Minato-sensei, but I chickened out in telling him the truth. I offer no excuses to you, Naruto. I should have been in your life since you were little, but I wasn't after losing my father, my teammates, sensei. And Kushina-sama, I was just too afraid to get close to you for that. I am sorry. For a long minute after the blonde had calmed down with a deep breath, he looks blankly to the ground. You're here now, that's what counts. Hiruzen breathed out some smoke. Naruto, the blonde lifted his head. Why don't you show your mother your gift, he said, attempting to lift the mood in the room. Kushina blinked as her son's face brightened, turning to his mother. I nearly forgot, I have a Kekkei Genkai. The redhead gawked as a crystal kunai formed in his hand. It's called Shoten, isn't it cool? Databeo Ochcups. His mother made a hilarious choking sound as she shook her head and rubbed her eyes where an Amaterasu's shining ass. Did you get that? I sure as hell don't have that Kekkei Genkai, nor any close relatives of mine. Minato didn't say anything about his line having it either. I dunno. Naruto shrugged. I just awoke it one day when I was in danger. He hadn't pondered much on how he came to develop this element to be honest a recessive bloodline that skips generations. Perhaps Hiruzen suggests with a gesture of his hand. It is not uncommon for that to happen. Sometimes there are instances in which bloodline traits may manifest at random in people. Your adamantine chains are one such example. Kushina, wait, what? The blonde had to do a double take at that. He look at his mother. With a wide grin, you have a Kekkei Genkai too, mom, that's so cool. Scratching the back of her head, Kushina lightly grunted. Well, Tsukiko Bachan said our chains were mostly found in the main house, but there were exceptions, and mostly woke in the females with a few males in between. Lifting her right hand, a chain phased through her palm going down part way. This chain can hold down even a biju. I can use it in both offensive and defensive. But Bachan never said anything about Shoten. Retracing her chain, she takes the crystal kunai, inspecting it. The detailing was beyond remarkable. The Hokage rubbed his chin. At any rate, I had Jiraiya training the lad when not on one of his missions. The old perf is still breathing. Kushina smirked. And still our spy master? Not that she was surprised. He was back when Minato was Hokage, and it was what he was best at. Speaking of the perv, where is he on assignment? He should be back by today. Kushina absently nodded as her gaze shifted and thought. She bit her lower lip and then asked, and mom? The occupants in the room save the genin stiffened at the question, exchanging nervous looks as they tried to come up with the most suitable way to tell her that would not result in the redhead bursting in rage. The Hokage began slowly. Has a return? Kushina's violet eyes closed shut, her grip on the sheets tightening until her knuckles were white. Her chest rose as she took a long intake of air, indicating she was trying to rein in the anger that was coursing through her. After a few seconds, Kushina let all that air out as though her anger was slowly seeping through as well. Yeah, of course she hasn't. Why would she? Everyone looked to Naruto, who looked at his mother with understandably a perplexed gaze. Your mom? Adoptive mother, the Hokage supplied. Tsunade Senju. Okay, what the fuck? Too much emotions and too many revelations lately. He couldn't deal with this right now, so he'd put it in the back of his head for later, because oh boy, he knew this was going to come up later. Sakura stretched after a long shower and changed of clothes. She was grateful their room had one. She walked towards the beds while Sasuke looked out the window. The rosette sighed as she sat down. Hope Naruto is alright. He didn't come to their room last night, but he was with the Hokage, so he had to be okay. That's what she told herself. Sasuke grunted as he kept his gaze out to the forest. It was odd in a way being alone with Sasuke after everything that happened. She liked to think she was no longer the same fangirl that would chase him around during their academy days. Looking back at it all had been so childish. The academy did not prepare her for what a true shinobi life would be like. Oh, that was their sensei's job, but even then Sakura felt she had been ill-prepared to deal with the world out there. Bandits, mercenaries, enemy ninja, honest to the gods, psychopaths. By all intents and purposes she should have died. After all, civilian-born ninjas rarely meet a fate that goes beyond cannon fodder, but here she was taking on the next trial to ascend through the village's ranks and serve as a more effective soldier. Soldier, yes, that's what she was. That's what they all were. She had joined the academy with no clear goal in mind, just juvenile thoughts driving her, the excitement and adventure that a ninja's life promised that inspired their young fantasies. But the truth was much darker than she ever thought. On that day when she first left the village walls and came home with a new outlook on the world, seeing it for what it truly was, what did that mean to Sakura? She still wasn't sure, but for now she'd move forward, respecting and honoring the path many have trailed long before her. As a shinobi of Konoha, and the person she owed it all that got her acting like a serious kunoichi was Naruto. Perhaps she needed to express it not just to him but to the other teammate in front of her, having put up with her all this time. Sorry for being so annoying back during the academy and after. The Uchiha turned fully wide-eyed before regaining his normal composure. It's fine. Well, that came out of nowhere, but he had to admit she had improved quite a lot. Since Nami no Kuni, she definitely looked a lot healthier, and by the tone he could see in her arms he could tell she had been training seriously. Granted, she annoyingly still asked for dates, but that is lessened to a bearable degree now. If Ino could take notes, that'd be a blessing. You've been training with Naruto? Blinking her emerald eyes in shock, Sakura slowly nodded. Sasuke was actually talking back. Why, yeah, ever since Nami we've been doing whatever we can to improve. We even been learning the same taijutsu Naruto found in the library. The sparring sessions were fun, though Naruto started paling when the rosette started working on her strength. I really need to step up so I can help you guys, and Naruto wants to show everyone he's not the dead last anymore, and he really wasn't if Sasuke was honest to himself. Then again, Naruto wasn't the only one. He had to reevaluate his opinion if he thought back on how Sakura protected him by herself, risking her life for him as was proper of a comrade. He couldn't remember last time she had tried to ask him out. Perhaps she was Finally growing a shinobi, a valuable comrade in arms he could rely on. She and Naruto. Sasuke wasn't used to relying on people. He thought that perhaps he'd never do not since perhaps he too was growing a bit. Jiraiya hadn't been much aware of his surroundings, a mistake that could cost any ninja's life, but right now his mind was concerned with other matters. He had been recalled quickly what he had been informed about at the village gate by Iguru. He could scarcely believe it had to be true. But he just didn't dare hope. The forest became a fast blur. He barely even realized he had entered the building, and the ANBUs escorted him through the warded-off area of the medical section. His heart pounded inside his chest as he approached the doors leading to the room. He could hear faint voices behind it, barely strong enough for him to recognize facing Hanzo or any of the most dangerous opponents he had fought in his life. Didn't even make his hands sweat as much as this moment could he. Controlled his shaking as he grasped the doorknob and opened it. Walking through the threshold, his breath got caught in his throat as he saw what lay inside the room. The same red hair, those same violet eyes turned to him with the same brightness. He remembered the same smile. Hey, Jiraiya stood frozen at the door. I know this must be a lot to take in for you. It's still a bit of a haze to me, to be honest. Feels like I just saw you the other day, but it wasn't the same for you, for any of you, as I understand. Well, Kushina's gaze shifted awkwardly. Are you going to stand there, or are you going to say some? Her words died off as he crossed the room in an instant and tightly embraced her, eyes shut tight as his voice managed to brokenly strain out, don't ever scare me like that again, girl. Both Hiruzen and Kushina blinked. Jiraiya seldom if ever acted with such emotion behind his actions in such a manner. The fact he was actually embracing the redhead spoke how emotional the man was at present. Soon a small smile came from the Yuzu woman, who hugged the man back. I promise you, old pervert. Letting go, albeit slowly, Jiraiya turned to his old sensei. How luck, along with a seal made by the goddess of Fuinjutsu herself. The elder Kage blew out some smoke from his pipe. That was all the Gama-san needed to hear as he smiled. How do you feel? He looked back to the redhead. Kushina deadpanned at her late husband's sensei. Oh, let me think here. For a minute, the last thing I recall was giving birth. Some lunatic in a mask appearing out of thin air and threatened my baby with a kunai. A minute after he was just born, get the QB ripped out of my soul and go on a rampage in the village, then waking up to find 12 years have gone by while I was inside Tsukiko Bachan's seal. The redhead huffed as she glared. How was your day, Kakashi? And Yugao sweat drop at the thick level of sarcasm that came from the redhead. Okay, stupid question, Jiraiya drawls before looking around the room. Where's Naruto? I had him go back to his team to bring them here. Hiruzen spoke up, along with getting a shower and some new clothes to wear. Kakashi weakly chuckled. I don't think Naruto in his current frame of mind will even remember to do the last two. Okage-sama, if you just saw your dead mother come back to life, would you be acting rationally? Fair point. Hiruzen sweat drops. The toad sage thought on his teacher's word. You okay with letting the two brats in on this? He doubted they, the Hokage and those in the know, had a proper way to deal with this situation, how to properly let it become known that Kushina was back. Naruto insisted. Besides, I'm sure they can keep this a secret for a time. Besides, Kushina smiled brightly. I want to see them myself. Me, Chan's littlest boy in the same team as my own boy, knew they'd become friends one day. Kakashi softly stiffened upon the mention of her friend. Yugao couldn't even muster a proper response. Hiruzen and Jiraiya exchanged worried gazes. The meaning was clear. Kushina had to be informed, especially if she was to meet Sasuke. The Sannin leaned closer to whisper to the Kage. Should we tell her? We must. She was her friend. And he whispered back, pausing momentarily. I know she's been through a lot already, but better now than her finding out from Sasuke. What about you? Know what that too? I'm afraid she deserves to know about Itachi. And these two. Jiraiya's eyes darted to the other two occupants in the room. The Hokage deliberated for a moment. We can trust them to keep this secret. Hey, Kushina looked at them with a raised eyebrow. What are you two whispering about? Sakura and Sasuke lightly jumped as Naruto bursted into the room. Naruto, are you okay? The Rosette sat up from her bed, waving it off. The blonde smiled and spoke so quickly his words were barely understandable. I'm fine. Hell, better than fin Yugi Shavito Kamudam. Various Mioni need to meet his teammates. Just blinked at him. What? The Uchiha gave a proper dry retort. How about not speaking at a speed only squirrels can understand? Naruto glared before shaking his head. I want you guys to meet someone who. Sakura tilted her head. It's a surprise seeing they did not have anything else to do. Sasuke shrugged. Alright, lead the way, dope. Before that though, the boys looked to their female teammate, who cutely crinkled her nose. Could you guys least get a shower and fresh clothes on? You both reek. Naruto and Sasuke deadpan seriously both droned. However, both boys froze as they swore. Sakura's eyes glowed as her hair moved on its own as she somehow now towered over both of them. Naruto absently thought he saw Kurama's chakra coming Offer we were stuck in a forest for 2 days. It's called basic hygiene. Use ITSHENNARO. Yes ma'am. Time skip so the exam won't restart till the after the following 2 days. Samui's words more of a statement than question as she stood by the open door of her team's room with Konoha Anbu standing at the threshold inside said room. Yujito Karui and Omoi absently listened. While cleaning their gear, the ANBU wearing a raccoon mask nodded. On account of the events in the forest your team was caught up and we felt best to hold the exam until all variables were tended to make sure a certain snake was not around causing more trouble than he is already. The buxom teenage blonde nodded. Understood. Reiken-san, thank you for keeping us in the loop. Giving a small bow, the ANBU vanished via shunshin. The Soul Chunin in the room sat down in a chair looking towards her fellow blonde. We have to inform the Reikage about that, the late teen said, obviously referring to Naruto Uzumaki's status as Jinchuriki and parentage. How exactly their Reikage will take it is unknown, but at the very least they know it won't be like the Sandaime Tsuchikage's warpath. If he ever learns of it, I know the Nibi Jinchuriki side Asama will likely shout so loud glass will shatter and break his desk again. If anything, he'll just want to keep tabs on Naruto, see how much of a threat he is or could possibly become. Yujito really did not like speaking about someone she came to respect, but given her village's militaristic nature and colored past with Konoha, Asama would want every detail on the son of the man he considered a rival if worse comes to worse, and Reikage-sama orders to kill Naruto. Yujito's thoughts straight. I really don't want to fight a fellow Jinchuriki, especially one that she was growing fond of, might even call friend, but orders were orders. Matatabi shook her head. Let's hope it never comes to that. Kitten. Kushina's eyes were wide as she sat as still as a statue on the bed at her side. Kakashi and Yugao weren't faring much better as they felt a knot pull in their stomach. Shock was etched on their faces. Jiraiya said nothing as he glared out the window. Aruzan exhaled a long breath as he lowered his hat. There he did it. He had just revealed the awful and horrifying truth of the Uchiha massacre. The silence was so strong one could hear a pin drop from a mile away, and when it was finally broken the next words felt like rumbling thunder. In the quiet room, oh my god, Yugao whispered, horrified. Did not even begin to explain how she felt. Kakashi let out a strangled noise as his breathing became very loud. Images flashed across his mind in quick succession, that of a young and very promising shinobi who joined the ANBU at a very tender age. For their line of work, pieces fell into place, forming a clear picture where once there were only inconsistencies and little reason behind the terrible events of that night. There was always something that didn't fit. Itachi's actions had been very out of place in the situation at the time. The discomfort the Uchiha felt before the suspicions of the Kyuubi attacked the elements of the clan that were distancing more and more from the village. A coup, heavens have mercy. The Uchiha had been planning a coup, and Itachi, who remained loyal to village, took on an impossible task and shouldered the sins of his clan behind a veil of lies and blood. Kakashi turned to look at Kushina. He could barely see her eyes, as her head was now bowed forward, shadowing them. Her body began trembling, teeth gnashed together as they held back a wail of despair she would not let out. Bitter tears streamed down her face as she violently shook. Images flashed in mind when she first met Makoto in the academy, becoming friends and teammates in the same squad under Tsukumo-sensei. Makoto's smile when she became pregnant with her first son Itachi, seeing him a day after he was born. The shy little boy that always called her Aunt Kushina. Blood dripped from the redheads from biting her lips so hard before she let out a scream full of pain and sorrow. Her hands covered her face as she muffled the screaming, damn you Fugaka, damn you and those fucking elders to the furthest depths of hell. Her mind roared with pure hate and venom. Yugao kept close to her teacher, trying to provide as little comfort as she could. Why wasn't I told at the time? Kakashi felt a tinge of calm fury in his tone as he glared hard at the Hokage. After all the years as one of the village's most loyal and best operatives, his position in the ANBU back then, he felt he should have been informed now more than ever that Sasuke was his responsibility as part of his squad, because Itachi had requested it to me. As such, he made the choice to bear the hate of the village, to hide the treachery of his clan so his brother would be spared from being outcast. Had I told you, would things had been any different? Hiruzen responded in a steely tone, glaring back. Makoto-sama would never have been a part of that, Yugao countered with resolution in her voice. Jiraiya let out a sigh. She put on a better front than I thought. The old Sannin glanced to the ANBU woman. Makoto was suffering from strong bouts of depression due to a certain event that fucked up the lives of the people within this room. She put on a brave face in front of her kids and Naruto when visiting him or outside the Uchiha compound, but Aion-sensei could tell she was in pain. Makoto had been one of the strongest shinobi they knew, but she had always been subservient to her clan, educated from a young age to remain loyal. After that tragic night, there was little that tied her to the village. She must have just gone along with it, seeing no other choice for her, because that was the will of the clan. Kushina held her hand close to her chest, trying to hold back the tidal wave of pain coming from it. Makoto always deserved better than what she got, but in the end the chains of her clan bound her throughout her entire life. I tried to resolve things peacefully, but they escalated too fast. I've fought alongside many Uchiha. Hiruzen said mournfully. I know for a fact they were people of courage and determination, valuable members of this village, but they are not the most stable people mentally. When faced with trauma, the awakening of their Sharingan and its stages only makes it worse. It releases chemicals on the brain that affect their behavior and thought process. They are prone to paranoia, and in worst cases psychosis. Jiraiya put his hands on Kushina's shaking shoulders, trying to comfort her. I'm sorry Kushina, we should have tried harder. What happened to the Uchiha, to Makoto, Itachi and Sasuke? That's our failure. Kushina raised her head. The only failure is Fugaku and those elders. She seethed with absolute rage in her voice. She never liked Fugaku or the Uchiha clan elders. As long as she could remember, the only good things that rat bastard husband of Michan ever did was give her friend 2 sons. Those were the only things she would ever acknowledge as a positive. The redhead slowly attempted to calm herself as she barely steadied her breathing, her rage turning into numbness as she gazed at nowhere in particular. Where's Itachi working as a double agent for me? He infiltrated an organization that's been on the rise for some time now. Hiruzen blew out some smoke from his newly lit pipe. He needed the smoke to calm his nerves. And Sasuke, he doesn't know the truth. As far as he knows, Itachi went crazy and killed everyone in the Uchiha. Jiraiya bluntly stated. The rage returned in full. That's bullshit, Kushina screamed at the Gama Sannin. Should we tell him that his entire clan wanted to take over the village and would have cost the lives of innocent people? Jiraiya yelled back. So making his entire life a lie is better enough. Having had enough, the Hokage ordered them to calm down. Both of you, this is not helping. Kushina, he turned his gaze to the Uzumaki. I need you to keep this secret like hell. I will protocol orders. Long years of ANBU training and experience with cover-ups left her mind. She couldn't tolerate this atrocity. Hiruzen rubbed his eyes, fighting back the growing headache. Kushina, Sasuke is not well. It was a dirty tactic, but he knew Kushina would relent if he brought up Makoto's son. I've seen it in his eyes for a long time now. The boy is broken. He needs help. He refuses to accept. We've tried to do a damage control so he won't go down the road many of his kin took, but his thoughts are filled with hatred and vengeance for the brother who sacrificed everything and did horrible things to him just to protect him. If he finds out the truth, that all his life has been a lie, the real reason as to why his clan died, then you will shatter any semblance of sanity left in him. The Uzumaki woman froze as her sudden anger ebbed away in an instant. Makoto's youngest was in pain. Her best friend's son needed help as much as it was a bitter pill to swallow to hide the truth. Kushina wiped away the tears from her eyes and blood from her mouth. Guess I have 2 sons to worry about, she whispered. I won't say a word. I love you, old man, but you're a real bastard sometimes. Sarutobi only nodded in agreement as he saw the begrudging nods from Kakashi and Yugao, and keeping quiet as well. There were days he really hated his job after the boys got their showers and fresh clothes per their female teammates' request/order. Naruto was excited, far too excited. In Sasuke's and Sakura's opinion, the blonde's attitude had been turned up to 11 as he proceeded to guide them through the corridors of the forest tower with the largest smile on his face. The fact he still did not tell them what was so important was beginning to wear thin on their patience. Naruto, who is this person you want us to meet? Sakura tried asking him again. I'll tell you when we get there. The Pinkette sighed. Give it a rest, Sakura. Sasuke advised. You won't change his mind. Well, at least he's in a good mood. If nothing else, the Rosette mentally mused on that. She was quite happy to see. Hoofing up through the corridor, the trio reached the medical wing, which got Sasuke attention upon seeing ANBU openly standing guard. The blonde gave a quick salute to masked shinobi, who gave a slight nod in return. They were silently glad the kids did not get here earlier. With all the screaming, they were greeted with the sight of their village leader standing a few feet away from a pair of doors. I hear you kids are, he said, clearly expecting them. Hokage-sama, Sakura voiced in confusion. What's going on? Naruto wouldn't tell us much. The Hokage let out a soft laugh. Yes, I imagine so. He approached the blonde and placed a hand on his shoulder. Listen, right now she's in a delicate state at the moment. We had to inform her about friends of her who passed away. The other 2 members of Team 7 shared a look. Who was this? Naruto's gaze became downcast for a moment. You should go and seeing you will do her good. Nodding, the blonde opens the doors now, seeing Eros and Nin in the room. Seeing the red-headed woman was rubbing her face with her hands. Mom, both Sakura and Sasuke looked wide-eyed at each other, then to the Hokage. The elderly shinobi grunted. It's been a strange few days. Kushina sniffed, lifting her head, showing how puffy her eyes were from crying. Hey Sochi, her voice hoarse cracked. She tried to smile, which did not reach her eyes. Walking over to the bed, the Blonde looked over to Yugao and Kakashi, who sat back in their chairs, giving a nod to him. He was picked up by a chain and brought onto the bed where his mom gave him a hug. He hugged back. "You okay, Mom?" Kushina was quiet for a minute. "I'll be in a while." Letting go the blonde looked over to Jiraiya. "Why are you here?" Eros and Nin the Toad Sage deadpanned while getting light snort/giggle from the Yuzu woman. "I told you not to call that brat. I'll stop calling you that when you stop peeking on the girls at the hot springs." Naruto snarked back. Excuse me." Sakura politely called for their attention, and it was then that the others remembered that they had 2 new guests in the room. "I don't mean to be rude, but could you kindly tell us what the hell is going?" she screeched. Mom, did Naruto actually call this woman Mom? What new spore of madness was this?" Sasuke, while far more composed, could not stop the incredulity from becoming obvious on his expressions. "Yeah, I'm with her on that one. A little clarification would be nice." Naruto pretty much hopped in place with a beaming smile. "This is my mom. A bit more clarification please." The redhead for her part could not stop staring at the Uchiha, something the boy noticed and was becoming increasingly unnerving for him, the way he looked at him with such nostalgia and disbelief, while the woman muttered, "Sorry, it's just that last time I saw you were barely a few months old." Blinking, the Uchiha looked at Naruto again. "Explain please," he stressed through nearly gritting teeth. Short version: Kakashi lifted a finger in a chipper tone. "Kushina-sama survived via a powerful scroll made by the legendary goddess of Fuinjutsu, Tsukiko Uzumaki. She was in a sort of healing stasis, frozen in time for 12 years. She was finally unsealed the other day." What followed was the most uncomfortable silence the 2 young genin ever experienced, which lasted for a good 2 minutes, before Sakura looked right to Naruto. "Are we in Wonderland?" the Rosette meekly asked. Kushina blinks, looking at Sakura long enough to make the Rosette uncomfortable. "Sweetie, is your father named Kazashi Haruno?" "You, yes ma'am." The redhead beams. "Which makes your mother Mabuki-chan. So that shop of theirs paid off after quitting being ninjas. How are they?" Sakura stammered as she awkwardly stared at the rather excitable woman, whose smile was uncomfortably similar to Naruto's. "It's going well. I'm sorry, this is all so very strange." "Yeah, I guess it is, isn't it?" Kushina asked rhetorically as she scratched her neck. "Let's start over, shall we?" She cleared her throat. "Nice to meet you. My name's Kushina Uzumaki, born in Uzushio and all-around badass." Now, with a proper introduction, Sakura could feel that some semblance of sense was established. "I'm Sakura Haruno," she greeted back with a short bow, reining in her emotions as she shifted her gaze back to Sasuke. "Gods, he looks so much like me-chan." But mostly she focused on his eyes. "You really have me-chan's eyes." Stiffening for second, but keeping his cool, the Uchiha spoke. "So you did know my mother?" Kushina nods. "She was my best friend since the academy. Hell, she was my teammate in our genin squad." The redhead smirked. She was total badass, being creative with her fire element and kenjutsu that caught more of Sasuke's. His mother had never really spoken much about her shinobi days. "Oh, always thinking about other people, too much on them, and never enough on herself. I always said." Her smile grew dim, slowly vanishing from her lips. I heard what happened to her." Her voice was barely above a whisper, thick emotion, melancholy, and sadness. "Gods, I loved her. I am so sorry." She put remarkable resolve at holding back the tears from spilling. Once more the air in the room grew weary. Nobody said a word for a moment. "She sometimes would mention you." Sasuke finally spoke. His eyes wouldn't meet hers. "Sounds like you two were close friends. If you want, I could tell you about your mom during her shinobi days." Finally Sasuke looked up to her, not saying a word, before nodding. I'd like that. So I took the servant's clothing so Makoto and me could disguise ourselves. When I gave her the clothes, she just gave me this weird look and told me, why don't we just us henge?" And she made me feel like a complete moron for having forgotten that boy. Was she the smart one in the team? The genin and the other 2 adults in the room expressed their enjoyment of the tale, each in their own way. Kakashi and Yugao had heard it before, but Kushina being present to tell it once more was a very refreshing feeling. Naruto for his part laughed with a toothy grin. Sakura for her part giggled behind her hand. Sasuke only let out a soft snort, which for the Uchiha was already a great expression of his feelings. Hearing this woman remembers his mother so fondly was nice. He would admit to have someone else remember his mother, someone who could share their memories of her in such a way it was comforting, made him feel relieved in a way that there were people who still remembered her. "I'm serious, me-chan always knew the right thing to say and do. She saw things that went right over my head." Kakashi chuckled with his typical eye smile. "Only because you don't apply common sense to your plans, Kushina-sama." "Oh, screw you." Hard to believe 2 days had come and gone as the Uzumaki woman had been sharing all kinds of stories with her son and his team, who told a few of their own. Kushina just gawked. "That stupid cat is still alive." Her head shifted to her student and late husband's student. I told Gigi that thing was a Nakomata Buet. No, it's the daimyo's wife's favorite little kitty. We can't kill it. Kakashi chuckled weakly. I'm just glad my team finally figured out how to capture him. Guess someone got the scratching. Sakura pointed to both Naruto and Sasuke, who both glared at the rosette upon Kushina's question. Sounds like Obito. And Kakashi, the silver-haired jounin, slumped his head, earning a giggle from Yugao. Everyone having fun. I see. Jiraiya walked into the room with some breakfast for everybody. He sweat dropped seeing both Naruto and Kushina drooling at the sight of their respective bowls of ramen. Yeah, we know who the brat took after. Well, you kids eat up and get ready for the prelims since it starts in a bit. Thankfully, before leaving, Hiruzen explained what was going to happen when the exams finally restarted, for which Kushina filled some details. You kids can draw lots of good info on potential opponents by watching them fight. The redhead advised only good thing you can get whenever there's the need to have prelims, otherwise they just make the exam longer than they're supposed to be, and this year it's gotten even more complicated. Jiraiya grumbled and replied, yeah, I heard, Kushina said in disgust, her eyes gaining an edge to them. Orochimaru, that snake, he's planning something. You know he has to be. We're not dumb, girl. He must have something up his sleeve. The Toad Sage agreed. He wouldn't have taken the risk of infiltrating just to kidnap ninja. It'd be easier for him to ambush them when they're away on missions. He has something in mind, something that requires his personal presence. I don't like this one bit. Kushina deadpans. He's after my son and Mi-chan's son bad enough. He put that cursed thing on Sasuke, but wants to do it to Naruto. If he gets the chance that bastard tries getting near my son or Sasuke, I'll skin him alive and make a purse out of him. Tebe, not while you're recovering. Till then I'll keep an eye on the boys, Jiraiya said, leaving no room to retort. And until it's then business as usual. The redhead groans before devouring her salted ramen. Literally, she emptied it in what had to be one gulp, leaving Sakura and Sasuke to gawk. She's worse than Naruto. Kakashi sighed as he stood up from his chair. Well, I guess we better get ready. He looked to his genin, who finished their breakfast. Let's get to it, shall we? Kushina grumbled from her place on the bed. She grumbled louder, trying to make as much a scandal as possible. Yugao sighed. Is something wrong, sensei? I don't want to stay here. I want to watch the matches. Kakashi drawled. Doctor's orders. Kushina-sama, don't act like a child. You're a child. She threw an accusing finger at him. I'll get a TV linked to a camera on the arena for you, the ANBU quickly assured her. Will you stay here then? Kushina beamed at her. And that's why you're my favorite student. I'm your only student, the unlucky one who got roped with the woman child, she sometimes thought. Naruto gazed around the arena built at the base of the tower. It was huge, with large hands forming a seal carved out of stone at the front. 2 balconies on the second floor for people to watch the fights, one either side, connected by stairs to the first floor. The blonde grinned, seeing his fellow Konoha graduated class all present, if not a bit worse, for where the blonde gave a small quick wave over to Kumo and Kiri, with Yujito giving the thumbs up, and Haku smiling back. Looking forward, he saw Gigi with the Jounin sensei of the genin teams, the proctors of the first and second exams, along with Jiraiya standing on a stone platform in front of the carved hands. I bid you all welcome. Hiruzen spoke in authoritative tone. I am glad to see a fair number of you endured the hardships of the forest and made it to the tower. So is this the third exam? Hokage-sama, Kiba spoke up bluntly, with Akamaru barking on his head. Kurenai breathed out a light sigh beside a chuckling Asuma. I'm afraid that's not the case. Hiruzen tried not to smile too much when he heard the hushed and groans, whispers of disappointment and exhaustion. You see, the number of applicants who made it out is larger than we anticipated, so we will need thin the herd. So to say, the examinees liked less and less where this was going, so for that we shall be hosting a prelim exam. Those who win shall pass on to the third and final stage of the exam a month from now. Those who lose shall be disqualified and will need to apply for the next exams in 2 years. Most of the genin grimaced, yet obstacle to overcome in order to reach their goal. Some welcomed the chance of further testing their skills, yet others looked like they were eager at the chance of fighting for its own sake. The fights shall be arranged the same way we arranged them for the third exam, one-on-one, chosen at random. One of the large blue segments behind the hand statue lifted, revealing a monitor. The names will be brought up on here. Oh, is that Tsum's boy? Kushina gushed, watching a large screen television brought in by the ANBU and linked to the arena. Yugao sighed, watching her sensei trying to see the kids of her old friends in the arena. Kiba Inuzuka, Yugao clarified as the Hokage was speaking to the genin. He graduated with Naruto. He definitely takes after his mom. Hana-chan got the better looks out of the two. I'd say not that she'd say that to Tsum's face. So how's their father? He ran out on them. Yugao lightly shifted, recalling an angry Tsum storming through village looking for the good for nothing. Kushina deadpants, well, he's a lousy motherfucker. In seconds the redhead's mood shifted, seeing Kiba's team. I know a Hyuga from a mile away. Asashi's indeed. Yugao nodded. Knew it. Girl has Hitomi's hair color, another friend who passed away in her absence. She tried not to think about it right now, so she ignored the pang of pain in her chest. Goodness, look at her squirm. She looks shy as a mouse. And Ada-san has some confidence issues from what Kurenai-san Says she's trying to help her with that Ashai. Hyuga, she mused, well, guess there's all kinds. One look at the last member of the team, who's the mini Shibi. The ANBU chuckled in response. Shibi Dano's son. Actually Shino, man, these Aburame can never tell them apart with them always hiding their faces. As Hiruzen finished explaining the reason behind the exams, and man in a standard Konoha uniform with his Atai 8 wrapped on his head like a bandana, appeared via Shunshin. He was bowing to the village leader as he lightly coughed. Hokage-sama, may I take over from here? Sarutobi gave a nod as the man stood, turning to face the genin. My name is Heiei Gecko. I shall be the proctor of the preliminaries. Should he be even out of bed? Naruto and Sakura thought in unison, seeing the dark circles under the proctor's eyes, never mind light paleness of his skin, not to mention the constant coughing he was doing every few minutes. Kushina squinted, very much like her son. Is that guy gonna make it through the preliminaries? He should be in bed, not me. She soon noticed the awkward silence and looks from Yugao. What, that's my boyfriend? The Uzumaki stared at her, then at the man on the screen, then at her again. All the while Yugao squirmed under her gaze. No, Kushina slowly said, shaking her head incredulously. Yes, no, she retorted, stronger than before. Really, Yugao, really? He looks as lively as a corpse. He is very sweet. The ANBU defended him. He is very sick. That's what he is. I'm not gonna question your taste in men. No, fuck it, I'm gonna question your taste in men. I know this sounds hypocritical from the woman who married a Nancy boy, but at least he became handsome and less girly as he grew older. This guy's looks like a soft wind, could knock him over. Before we begin the preliminaries, is there anyone who wishes to back out? If you wish stop from going further in the exam, you may do so now. By the looks from the young shinobi, none showed they wanted go anywhere till one hand rose up. Actually, I like to drop out if that's okay, Kabuto spoke up. Looking rather disheveled from his time in the forest, Anko pulled out a clipboard and pencil. Kabuto Yakushi, being close to the elder team. Sakura looked over. Kabuto, are you okay? The glasses wearing teen gave a weak smile. Not really, that forest wore me out more than I liked. Even with the extra day, I'm not feeling up for fighting. As he heard the jounin telling him to leave, he gave a small bow and turned. After few steps his wrist was grabbed by one of his teammates, a teen wearing a high-collared, sleeveless, a purple shirt, short-sleeved with one white one underneath, an obi around his waist, purple pants, blue sandals, and purple fingerless gloves. A mask cloth covered his mouth, while his height 8 covered his head. What are you up to, Kabuto? Yoroi Akato whispered. Nothing at all, Kabuto whispered back. Have fun. Freeing his wrist, he walked away. No need to let the real me out on a bunch. Genin, have fun. Sasuke and Naruto crossing his arms. Jiraiya titled his head some Yakushi. I've heard that name before. That's Nono Yakushi's adopted son, I believe. Hiruzen tipped his hat. That was the orphan boy she found in that destroy village years ago. Wait, wasn't she the one? The boy doesn't follow in her footsteps, the Hokage sternly said. Danzo tried to have him act as a plant in the other villages, but was given to the village corps eventually. Since then he's been an active shinobi of our forces. Ah, I see. Jiraiya muttered. I worry about his future considering his history. Psychological evaluations don't hint at anything wrong. In a way, he continues working as intelligence gathering. The info he gathers for the exams can be valuable. Let's hope he doesn't end up like his mother. I feel sympathy for the boy, but I'm not in liberty of discarding assets to the village. Not in these times. Jiraiya ruefully snorted. These times have been going on for decades. Lightly coughing, Heiei spoke up. If no one else wants to back out, let's begin. All eyes went to the wall monitor as two names appear. Sasuke Uchiha versus Yoroi Akato. The Uchiha narrowed his eyes while Yoroi grunted. Will everyone else please go to the second floor balconies except the named Genin? You'd better win. Team Naruto smirked. Count on it. Naruto. Sasuke smirked competitively. Right back, cause I'll be facing you in the third exam. Sakura just rolled her eyes before dragging her blonde friend slash teammate away. Arriving on the balcony, their respected jounin appeared beside their Genin teams. Kakashi brightly waved at Zabuza, whose Kiri team was close to Izyo. The swordsman rolled his eyes. Kakashi, sup guys? Naruto grinned to Haku and her team and waved to Yujito as her team came over. Karui gave the blonde a long look. You look different. She couldn't quite place it, but the blonde seemed brighter. Just a few good days, Naruto said cryptically as he grinned. He soon blushed a storm as a young blonde curvaceous woman at least 4 or 5 years older than him with a lighter shade of blue eyes than his walk over, wearing a very low-cut outfit which displays her impressive bust with mesh armor underneath a short skirt and red handguards, high boots, her Kumo flak jacket being worn like griddle. Naruto blushes a bit more as she stands in front of him. Samui, you're Naruto Uzumaki. I presume. The young Uzumaki's mouth moves a bit before being lightly smacked on top of the head by Yujito. Yeah, I'm the Chunin substitute for my team from Kumo. Pleased to meet you. Don't look at her breasts, Naruto chanted to himself. Whatever you do, don't look at her breasts be better than Eros and Nin on the arena. Jiraiya sneezed. Naruto coughed and focused on her very unimpressed eyes. And nice to meet you, this is my teammate Sakura Haruno and Kakashi Ataki. Sam, we finished for him, surprising him. Yakumo is familiar with him. We have standing orders regarding you. You know, Team 7 Sensei. I smiled cheerfully. Is that right? If able, kill him and take his eyes, she coolly quoted, making the Kumo Genin wince, and Kakashi's students look at her with wide eyes. She has no chill, Sakura thought, exasperated, which was a rather ironic statement considering her frosty demeanor, a sentiment shared by her blonde teammate Kakashi. Much to their surprise, chuckled. Yep, sounds about right. Apparently he was far too used to people wanting him dead. This was more disturbing for Naruto and Sakura. Relax, obviously those orders aren't held during times for the exams. Keep the peace and all that. Sam, we shrugged. But after the exams are over, who knows? Kakashi nodded casually, now reading his favorite book. I understand, Samly-san. The red-haired Kumo Kunoichi dryly looks over to Naruto and Sakura. Samly threatened him, and he just reads one of those stupid smut books like it was nothing. Yup, the two Konoha Genin drawl without even looking up. Kakashi casually informed them Sasuke's fight is about to start. That brought his students' attentions to the arena. Coughing into his hand, Hey turned his tired eyes to the Genin that stood a good foot away from each other. Are you two ready? I am. Sasuke nodded. Hey, Yoroi snorted cockily. This will be easy. The Uchiha did not deign that with a response. He merely cracked his neck, showing his opponent that he didn't even think much of him. It got the intended result. Sasuke could feel the angry brewing inside Yoroi by the small amount of killing intent leaking out. First match of the prelims, Hey called by raising his hand, managing to get his coughing under check. For the moment, Sasuke Uchiha versus Yoroi Akato, and brought down his arm in a sweeping motion. He withdrew from the arena, leaving the two combatants to face off. Sasuke immediately began to calculate his odds, his thoughts nearly driven by instinct. At this point he knew nothing of Yoroi's capabilities, and if he dragged out the fight he risked showing some of his own skills to people who did not yet know how he fought, which would bring further complications for the final part of the exams. He needed to end this fight quickly, for that brutal and coldly calculated efficiency were necessary. As Sharingan activated, he barely felt the sting of cursed mark on his neck. The Hokage had done a great job. If he hadn't had the damn thing warded off, he wouldn't have been able to fight at full power for this match. Otherwise, Sasuke charged at his opponent, who charged towards him as well. He could see Yoroi's movements clearly. He dodged a right punch while delivering a sweeping kick to his stomach. Yoroi reacted by holding his leg back with his left hand. Sasuke followed up with right fist, only to be caught by Yoroi as well. Yoroi's hands were coated in chakra, and Sasuke felt his limbs grow weaker by the second. He could feel it and see it plain as day. Yoroi was using a technique to drain his chakra, physically exhausting his body. What's wrong, Uchiha? His opponent called mockingly. Feeling tired, Sasuke immediately tried to get some distance between them, but Yoroi anticipated this and struck his remaining leg with a swift kick, throwing him off balance and allowing Yoroi to drive him to the ground, where he pinned him with a hold. Sasuke struggled under his opponent's weight, but his weakening strength made that very difficult. Come on, kid, what you doing? Kushina muttered as she bit on a nail, watching the fight through the TV. Get up, Sasuke. Naruto grunted as he and Sakura watched on helplessly. Kakashi took his gaze away from his book and to watch the fight. There was little worry in his gaze. He was certain Sasuke could overcome this. His students had been through worse. After all, UGH, Sasuke cried out as his head was slammed against the ground. Soon I'll dry all the chakra from your body until you're nothing but a husk, Yoroi boasted with a throaty sound as he kept his voice low. The Uchiha focused his gaze on his opponent's eyes, but much to his shock they failed to penetrate past the lenses. Can't use your genjutsu, the masked shinobi mockingly laughed. Got news for you, these glasses are layered with seals. Ocular genjutsu can't penetrate the chakra barrier between them and my eyes. TCH, what an idiot. Why would he tell him that? Yoroi just told him what he needed to do. Mustering all his strength, Sasuke slammed his head forward, his forehead protector clashing against the lenses. Yoroi recoiled immediately on the impact. The breaking glass did not pierce his eyes, but it left them quite vulnerable. Sasuke's Sharingan bore right into them. Goodnight, Kushina cheered loudly as she laughed, seeing Sasuke's opponent punched himself out and hit the ground unconscious. Michan was way more fun with her genjutsu. Yugao rolled her eyes as her boyfriend declared Sasuke the winner. Way to go, Sasuke. Kunino cheered beside Chuji, and Shikamaru Haku glanced over to Sakura. So his little problem was fixed, she asked covertly, in case if any teen was listening. Naruto simply gave her the thumbs up, looking at his down opponent. Sasuke shook his head. You never reveal a weakness to the enemy, that's basic. 101. Shifting his feet, the Uchiha turned and went to his team. I see why the Kabuto guy said you lot have been doing this 7 times. Leaning his back against the wall, the Oto Jounin smirked. So no reaction from my gift? They sealed it well. His eyes gazed to Naruto. I will find the opportunity to give you my gift as well, Naruto-kun. The man lightly chuckled